We're at Whiskey Mist. Thanks for joining us today. Our show today is a little bit different. We don't have any kind of script or anything. I'm speaking with Alessandra Marinari. She was on the did I say that right?
No.
Okay, you'll correct me. So she was on the show last time, and something came up, and we had a little bit more of a chat about it, and we thought it would fit for her to speak to us on a more personal level today about her story of healing from sexual trauma. So, Alessandra, how would you say your last name?
Mariani.
Mariani. I think I said it right before, but I got it wrong
You did.
this
It's
time.
fine. It's a tongue twister.
That's okay. It's a beautiful name.
Thank you.
But thank you for, sitting with me again and being on the show again. What was it like the last time?
Fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it was kind of a difficult topic.
It was a difficult topic, but the group of people that came together to talk about it just brought a lot of good energy
Yes.
to the circle.
Yeah.
I really liked it.
Well, good. I'm
Yeah.
glad that you chose to come. And I know
Thank
it
you.
was kind of a random thing that happened where we connected probably, I think it was Snapchat. It's amazing how all this technology
It was.
brings us together.
It does. Definitely does.
But I think, I don't know, we just put it out there. I was like, maybe you'd be a really great guest on the show. You came by for a chat at my office, and we weren't really sure what the show would be. And then we're here.
Yes, we are.
And, on the last show, we were talking a little bit about good and evil, right and wrong, stuff like that. And from my perspective as a therapist, I mean, my experience with sort of that term evil is usually I work with victims. So my specialty is with sexual trauma, adults and children. And so when I hear their stories, I experience a contact to that energy, that sort of more dark, let's use that word, darkness,
Yes.
right? Because I think that you're more comfortable with that term. So it's almost like through their experience of darkness, most of them do find light. They find their growth. They find their healing through their recovery process. But when they're talking about what happened to them in those moments, whether brief or elongated over time, it gets transmitted through them, I mean, and so I have contact with that darkness, and it can be very, very overwhelming, very emotional. Even just talking about it, like I think it brings up emotion right now, without it being a specific instance or story.
Yeah, I can feel it.
You feel it?
Yeah.
And I know that you come from, well, it's hard to say what was first, right? You are you, and you also are involved in yoga and those kinds of philosophies and spiritualities, but the energy is something that you believe in, whether it's positive or negative, and that sort of process of being aware of that energy. I think it brings or explains the language that we use when we talk about darkness and evil, for me anyway.
100%.
And so just to sort of give you an opportunity to start wherever you want to start. My contact with evil is usually through the stories of other people at this point in my life,
right.
But by all means, I've contacted evil personally as well. But today, I want you to feel that this is your opportunity to share your experience with both elements, the positive and the negative, whatever you feel comfortable sharing.
Absolutely. I guess I could start with the negative or the evil is the feelings, is the emotion, and is the actual physical pain that something like trauma, sexual trauma especially, the impact it has on your body. No matter what light you try to look at those things in, they're never comfortable. And they always hurt.
Yeah.
However, they're there.
It's almost
And
like an energetic injury
exactly.
as well, right?
It's an energetic thing. You can never look at an experience. I can never look at trauma that's happened to me in the past at the specific experience and get a good feeling from it. The memories alone are dark. However, it's the fact that you walk away from that you grow from that, and you no longer let your experiences of harm define who you are today. So that is right there, the good, the evil,
Yeah, and something
the
we
light,
mentioned,
the dark, yeah.
both being a part of the same thing.
Yeah.
What did you think about, I made the point when we're talking about the person that's doing the evil, how it's not necessarily, if you are coming from a position or perspective of growth and healing, you might be able to look back and say, okay, what I experienced was darkness, but I don't necessarily have to condemn that person.
Right. I think if you were to condemn, or if we do condemn, because I definitely have. I'm not saying, things have happened and it's okay, you condemn, but it just takes you down a path that's very heavy. If we live in constant anger or constantly wanting to get revenge for those who have hurt us, it doesn't set us free. It doesn't mean you have to forgive, even though forgiveness is said to set you free. It doesn't mean you have to forget. You definitely do not make excuses for it. It's wrong. Mm-hmm. Hurting others is wrong. But I'm sorry, what was the question?
That's
it just,
okay.
It just takes you.
But I think this is a very controversial point. It's
the person doing it. We were talking about the person that does it.
Yeah.
Right? I think you get to a point in your life, if you've experienced any sort of abuse or trauma, so that you can take that, anger, revenge, you can live that out, but it gets old real quick and you're not setting yourself free and you're not living your truth. You are living a life based off of what someone has done to you, and that is almost giving them more control.
Exactly. So you're harnessing their energy.
Absolutely, absolutely, absolutely. So I think it's important. I mean, from my own experience, the people that have hurt me, I've developed some sort of compassion. I get emotional because I can't imagine the place that they're in to be able to do that to somebody else. Mm-hmm. And I'm not condoning it. I'm not saying it's okay what you did, but my path through healing is definitely one that that's the route I'd rather take. If someone is in a place where, the darkness kind of surrounds them, those are the people that need maybe our prayers most. Those are the people that need the love most.
And they probably have a lot more of the symptomology of a victim.
Of a victim, and of somebody who doesn't have the love or the support, or was never told, it's okay, do better, or this is how you do better, and this is, right and wrong. It's a very fine line. It's a very fine line. It's a very fine line.
And I think it does actually relate a lot to the topic that we were talking about, which is probably how it came up, because the choice, it's an ongoing, consistent choice to do right or wrong, or do positive, do negative, based on any kind of momentary information. It's like we can choose to respond from a dark place, or we can choose to respond from a lightness.
Exactly. And that too, I think if we are going to respond in the light, it doesn't dismiss. We have to make sure that we don't dismiss what happened. We have to make sure that we don't not stand up for ourselves.
Right.
I can say I forgive you, and it's okay. But it's not okay what you did. And whether you want to bring that person to light, and by light, whether you want to surface it, whether you want to expose them yourself, whether you want to let them know or have other people let them know, if it's serious, whether you want to even tell authority or not. That's not really, I think, what the battle internally should be about. It needs, when someone harms you, other people need to know about it so that they don't do the same thing to other people.
Yeah, and it's a personal choice too. I think it can be very convoluted. There's lots of things involved. I know as a professional, there are certain rules that we have to
Right.
make reports of, but not when it's in regards to adults
Right.
sometimes. But if there is further risk, like let's say there's a perpetrator who is exposed to harming other people, you know, at some level, we have to maybe step in and make
Right.
a report if we know another
Safety.
minor. Exactly.
When it comes to the safety
Right.
of others.
But I hear what you're saying, that that might be, you know, what the choice that you make that's right
Right.
for you. But ultimately, healing is something that happens internally.
Healing happens internally, and healing is the ultimate choice that you can make for yourself.
Yeah.
No one can take that away from you. No one can take, I'm going to just repeat it, no one can take that from you. That's yours, you own it. You own your body, it's so important. You own your mind, you own your heart, you own your soul.
When someone does something to you, injures you in that way, I mean, if we're talking specifically about sexual trauma, from my experience, my professional education, it's such a complex trauma. You know, there's different ways of harming people, physically, energetically, mentally, emotionally, sexually, financially, lots of different ways. But sexual trauma sort of encompasses so many of them.
It encompasses almost all of them.
Right.
That is the key to healing. You can't see yourself and the world around you as separate. You can't just fix one part and not the other.
And I know
Go
ahead, sorry.
It also encompasses so much because, you know, our sexual organs are the way that we are, that's where we come from.
Yeah.
We come from someone else's body.
It's a major violation.
It's a major violation. It's
Yeah.
a major violation. And if we don't spend the right time healing that part of us, it's going to spread. We could pass it on to others.
Yeah, and I mean, when you're saying that, it even just brings up the whole concept of, let's say, good or evil, bad, or energy, right? Because I've even spoken to people, again, with this contact to the energy, where maybe it wasn't about trauma, but what they talked to me about was almost being around people who were haunted by an evil spirit or some kind of negative energy, which some people may or may not believe in it. But let's just take it at face value. You can say someone is schizophrenic or, you know, psychotic if you don't believe in it, or you can say, no, they're being like,
It's an entity, right?
right.
It's a darkness.
Something
has come over.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
And so when you let that darkness inside of you, it can take over.
Absolutely, it can.
And that's this
Absolutely.
very similar like the sexual trauma is almost like it's both of that. Like it's like this
100%.
a darkness.
Well, I know
can-
from my experience personally, the way that I got to the core root of my trauma was actually through the anger that I was personally experiencing. Acting out, harming others with my words, my thoughts, harming myself with the same things. That's not me.
Right. So how did you make that connection eventually?
It was a lot of questioning, a lot of self-work. You know, I've been doing yoga for the last 7 years, but not even in the bending and the stretching, the sitting, the meditation. Sitting with myself and sitting with all of my emotions and asking where they come from. And then over time, the connections come. And I do feel that we're in this time in space right now where everything is surfacing very, very quickly. You know, there's more of a collective consciousness. There's a higher vibration in some sense where people are really starting to know or have this knowing, just this all knowing where they come from and who they are.
Where do you think that's coming from? Because that's come up a lot.
I don't
actually.
know. I don't know. I think it needs to happen. You know, from our conversation last week, when Badir was saying evil and good are growing, they're expanding. Well, it only makes sense as our population continues to grow and expand, as everything that we do as human beings, in a sense, is because we're waiting for something bigger and greater. I think it's just time. It's time to evolve. You know, we're so used to evolution, you know, when you think of maybe like an animal or a butterfly or the dinosaurs. But what about evolution of humankind? What about evolution where, you know, we were created with the earth.
And I think part of this maybe stage or layer, I don't know what to call it for you, is because it's not really linear, right? It's not a hierarchy, but this layer for you is really about changing your perspective to that growth, that positivity, to empower yourself.
Absolutely,
really.
Absolutely. And it's to own yourself, and it's to know that you wake up positive because you've dealt with all the negative. Not just, oh, I'm positive, everything is good, because at the end of the day, we do need to face our truths. We need to face our fears. We need to face, you know, sometimes the things in life that we don't like. We have to step out of that comfort zone.
And it's all a process. I mean, you needed that anger when you experienced that anger.
100%.
Yeah.
Would I do anything to take it back? At times, yes. For sure.
Yeah.
Hurt a lot of people. I hurt myself. It was just a very dark time, but time heals. Time heals. And I 100% needed all of the emotions that I would consider bad to be where I am today.
We had a conversation in my office working with some women about seeing their experiences with sexual trauma as a blessing. And we had this interesting debate because, I mean, we laugh, we cry, we do lots of things, the scope of emotions, but we got to this interesting debate about how in the heck can something so horrible be considered a blessing?
Well, I'll use this as an example. Since I have publicly or started to speak out loud, you know, the specifics of my trauma, whether it be to friends, someone I just kind of meet, coworkers, girlfriends, boyfriends, family. It's actually so surprising how many people are in similar situations or have experienced similar situations. And when you can look at someone and say, hey, I've been there, and you're going to be okay, and it is okay. That is a prime example in itself of how something so dark can actually be such a blessing.
Yeah, and I think being able to go through the process, to not sort of get stuck in one layer or another, but to allow yourself the opportunity to come through it all.
Absolutely. To come through it, to feel it all, to evolve from it all.
Right. And then being, you know, it probably never ends, just like life and evolution and growth doesn't end, but you get to a point where your energy is more focused on creating something good from it for other people, for yourself, and just not staying stagnant in that.
Absolutely.
Just keep going and creating more positivity. It's almost like that's your revenge.
100%.
Right?
Live a good life.
Exactly.
Live a good life and help other people.
Because it goes back to so many different things, but I did a TEDx talk on this topic in general, on sexual abuse, and I talked about the crabs in the bucket and just how that's the opposite. That's like when people get stuck in you know, harnessing that darker energy where it's competitiveness and it's envy and it's greed and it's insecurity and all those sorts of things where, you know, you always want to bring other people down. So especially in Cayman, you know, as in such a small community, you know, you want to stay at the top. So you're constantly like, you know, trying to bring other people down if you're feeling competitive with them. But a lot of times it's based on some kind of wound.
100%.
So if we
100%.
see that in people, then we can have that compassion. Which makes all the difference
empathy,
in the
the
world.
understanding.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I don't know if The people that you've talked to, have they all been injured in some way in the past?
Absolutely, yeah. It's been, it's so, I smile because it's just, I feel like it's just you help each other. We help each other set each other free. And to know that you're not alone, because that's the, the isolation, the being tangled up. That's definitely what keeps you here.
I mean, that's what when I speak to people one-on-one, I really recommend a group setting because I think group therapy is so cathartic for anyone who's experienced trauma because, like you said, the trauma is so isolating.
Isolating, absolutely.
And when you're in the group and you're just hearing these echoes of exactly the things that you felt, no matter what your specific trauma was, it doesn't really matter. Whether you feel you had less trauma and they had more trauma, or yours happened once and theirs happened 10 times, or for 10 years, the actual experience and the impact of it, it's the same. It's the same. And when you hear other people talk about maybe what they've done to overcome that and empower themselves, or you hear other people talk about the negative stuff, you're like, wait a minute, this is not your fault. When you start to say what you need to hear for yourself.
Absolutely. Definitely, everyone it's a reflection, right?
Yeah.
We're all in some way a reflection of ourselves.
Could I ask you,
each other.
why choose to come on the show and tell your story?
I just felt it was just the right thing to do.
Do you think this could help you, just this process sitting here talking on a TV show?
I do. But I think it could help others.
Yeah. How would you like for it to help maybe other people, someone that's watching, because it could reach someone on YouTube?
I think it's just understanding that you're never alone. And it's understanding that there's ways and there are things around you, there are people around you, there are disguises around you, there's energy around you that is there to help you and uplift you. So that you can live the life that you were born to live. You can have the freedom that you were born to have.
It's almost like that, whatever, 1 or 100 incidences doesn't have to define you.
Absolutely, and then I think it was also, to a lot of the times when these things happen to us, we don't think that they're wrong. I mean, our society, not so much anymore, but it doesn't really expose these things. Women and, a lot of issues that women may have, it may, in the past it's been kind of swept under the rug, and I think to bring it all to the surface, I mean, there's so much going on. I mean, our ratings and the exposure that we can have in certain aspects, whether it's music videos and the media and stuff like that, can be at the all-time here when it comes to like pushing boundaries. But why can't I come out and say what happened to me? Why can't other women do the same? And I think that's important.
Absolutely. And that's what I feel, right? I feel that we either don't talk about it, but now there's maybe a momentum to talk about, but the negative stuff, right? To then just harness that darkness energy and say, how horrible it is and how evil that person is, and I think that perpetuates the problem as well. So I think actually what we should be doing is what we're doing right now is showing that there is growth, that there is positivity, and something beautiful that happens, or can happen.
Absolutely.
It's just choice, but you're here.
Yeah, absolutely. And at the same time, obviously off camera, getting real with what exactly happened and remembering those moments and having those flashbacks and just completely being there in that moment, taking it for what it was.
Well, it's certainly
moving
not
forward.
easy.
No.
Yeah, you got to go through a lot of therapy or
therapy, a lot of crying,
self-work.
Yeah, a lot of weeks of I'm not getting up, I'm never getting up out of bed again.
And I think that's the only way to really heal is to, it's almost like you're using your God-given immunity, it's like that goodness that you're born with to fight against the negativity that's invaded you.
Absolutely.
And you have to let it run its course in a way. I know we're going kind of all over the place, but I feel like this exposure of goodness and darkness has been really helpful for me to talk about this in a different way. That hopefully creates hope for people, so that they know that it's not all bad, that we don't have to see people as victims. I mean, we want to have consequences for this kind of behavior, right? A person who commits this kind of crime is doing something bad, doing something evil. It doesn't mean that they don't deserve to try to make amends or try to become a better person, but we need to deal with the act first and help everybody, really. But I think we're not helping anybody by brushing it under the rug. We're not helping anybody by just having that negative narrative, right? And so when you hear someone, or there's a voice like yours that wants to take the light and the positive route, I think that is so important to benefit you and anyone watching that
Others,
might.
yeah, absolutely,
you know?
absolutely. I mean, when you put it that, it just came so it just was the thing to do. It was just the thing to do. I didn't know why, but you just do it.
Because we only have a minute or so left, is there anything that we haven't covered that maybe you would like to share?
I don't think so. In terms of sharing, I think it's just the awareness and the understanding that there is help out there, and there are resources, and there are people, professionals, non-professionals, that are there to help you through anything that you feel that you need help through, and not to be embarrassed about it, and not to be scared of it. Just work through it, because it will come to an end eventually.
Thank goodness. So what's next for you, Ali?
Wake up tomorrow morning
Yep.
and have a really good day. That's
Yeah.
it, moment by moment, day by day.
I think it's
100%.
beautiful. I mean, it takes so much courage to do this. I'm really happy for you,
you.
to be back and to be just empowered and open to all these wonderful things that you might not understand, or just sort of trusting your intuition.
Trusting, just trust it all.
I've really enjoyed speaking with you.
You too.
And
Thanks
I
for
have
having
faith
me.
that we will speak some more.
Absolutely.
So thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.